Invincible season 4 just dropped, and Mark Grayson is not the same person we left, and honestly, good, because right away we see that Mark is being way more ruthless than ever. He's not holding back anymore. He's just taking out villains in a single punch or damn near killing them on the spot, and it doesn't let up through the entire first half of this season. Like, he's fully accepted that sometimes he has to do what he swore he would never do, so innocent people don't have to die anymore. And this really makes Mark start to look. But in that realization that he's becoming too ruthless, he decides to ditch the blue and black suit, and going forward he's trying to leave the ruthless persona behind with it. And I've been waiting so long to see Mark back in this yellow suit because it looks so good. And then we run into this dude named Dinosaurs, who shows up saying he's there to save the world, except his version of saving the world is basically genocide, and I cannot get behind this dude at all. Like, he looks really sick, but what he's saying is actually crazy. And it gets even weirder because he's got like some Hulk situation going on where the dinosaur and human versions of himself are like two completely different personalities, and I have a feeling we haven't seen the last of him either, so I'm fully expecting to see him return. Then we are instantly hit with the Sequids returning, and Rudy really pissed me off in this episode. Like, he had absolutely no reason to be stepping out of his armor and risking the entire human race just because he couldn't help but follow an order. And even though he was right with there being people down there, it doesn't change how ridiculous that risk was. But the invasion comes down to the last possible second, where Mark has to make a split-second decision to risk it all or take out the final Sequid guy himself, because there wasn't enough time for anyone else to get there and help him detach the Sequid. So Mark makes the ultimate choice to eliminate the infested but still innocent human to protect the greater good. And of course, right after the Sequids are dealt with, here comes another threat, and her name is Universa, but think of her more as a Gamora and Thor mixed into one. And I'm gonna be honest, she doesn't do like anything but get knocked out by Eve. But one of the more important parts about this segment is this is when we found out Eve's powers are starting to malfunction or like go on the fritz. They're not working like they should, and throughout all 4 episodes they just keep getting worse, eventually to the point where they don't work at all. And then we find out why, and it turns out Eve is actually pregnant, and she voices how she's not ready to be a mother, and I get that, and look at all the stuff that's already happening around her and Mark and the whole situation. But one thing I didn't like is that she doesn't tell Mark. Well, not yet anyway, and at least we've got 4 episodes left, so there's still time for her to tell him, but right now I'm on the edge about the whole situation. Then we run into Damien Darkblood, you know, the demon guy from season 1 who actually sniffed out Nolan as being the one who killed the original Guardians, except this time we pick up with him in literal hell. And this episode was actually one of the funniest things I've seen in the whole show, and I was not expecting to crack up this much in a season that just seems so heavy. Like, it turns out the literal devil isn't the worst of the worst in hell in the Invincible universe, and I love that they try to make us understand he isn't evil, but I myself, like Mark, would be pretty dumbfounded if I got dragged to hell and someone told me Satan wasn't actually the bad guy. Like, what do you mean he's not evil? Oh, and I have so much respect for Mark for not kneeling in that moment for Satan.
I'm not bowing to Satan.
And that was just a class act. It makes me respect Mark even more. Then we cut to Cecil, and remember how Cecil kept Conquest alive last season? Well, what do you know? He escapes. Like, are we serious right now? After everything Mark and Eve and everybody else went through to stop this guy, Cecil just decided to keep him alive to, what, ask him some questions? And it never stops surprising me how many bad decisions Cecil continues to make. Like, he could have easily prevented this by putting the sound device in Conquest's head like he did to Mark in season 3, but no. He just lets him live and tries to bury him under a pile of metal, which is, you know, great plan, Cecil. That definitely would have worked. And if you think that's it, it's not, because Conquest goes straight back to Viltrum and tells Thrag everything. So if Thrag shows up and wipes everybody out, we can all agree that it was all Cecil's fault. Then we actually get to see something really interesting, and it's a flashback to Viltrum before everyone got killed off, and Nolan is actually very young here, and he looks a little bit too much like Mark for my liking, but he also doesn't look like Mark at the same time. It's very weird. And this is when we find out how and why there are so few Viltrumites left. And it all traces back to someone we all know very well. Thaddeus, aka Optimus Prime. And he is actually the first Viltrumite to turn on his race. And it turns out this is actually the Great Betrayer. And he didn't just betray Viltrumite in his own race. He killed their great Emperor Argyle. And then as a cherry on top, he took it upon himself to create a virus called
the Scourge virus,
using using his own DNA, and this virus targets the immune system of all Viltrumites, and he wiped out billions with this virus. Like, the guy that we've been watching operate as basically a good guy the whole time turns out to have killed all the Viltrumites, which is just crazy, and I can't even hate him for it because the Viltrumites killed billions before he wiped them out. And after that lore dump, we cut back to Nolan and Alan on Telescria, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm right with Alan on both counts. One, how did Nolan almost make us even feel slightly bad for the Viltrumites getting wiped out? And two, I genuinely liked them more before I found out Nolan's actual mission was to bang his way across the galaxy. But then we see them on a quest to find the weapons from Nolan's book, and this was honestly my favorite part of the season so far. Like, the way they build Nolan and Alan's dynamic in this episode was just phenomenal. Like, we get two guys confiding in each other while still keeping each other at arm's length at the same time. And something I kept noticing through the first half of the season is that Nolan's moral code has evolved massively, and his actions clearly show he's working against the Viltrumites, but he still won't verbally commit to the resistance, and that gap between what he does and what he's willing to admit is one of the most compelling things I've seen in this season so far. Oh, and really quick, the Thraxans come back trying to conquer Earth again, and this time they actually learned from their old mistakes and put the anti-aging device on their side of the portal, so the Guardians had to go and cross through to destroy it, which Monster Girl and Robot do, but in doing so they get stuck on the other side. And my biggest problem with this is that time moves way faster over there than it does on Earth, so I don't know how they're gonna get back or if they'll be older when they get back, but I'm very interested to see how they play that off. And after everything we just saw, part 1 ends with the return of Omni-Man and Alan to Earth saying,
"I'm sorry, Mark. There's no other way. We need you. The time for war is upon us."
And when you think about everything that just happened in these first 4 episodes, Cecil letting Conquest walk straight back to Thrag, Rudy and Monster Girl getting stuck on the other side, Eve is pregnant, the Scourge virus reveal, like, the second half of the season is going to be absolutely insane. And I really like the flashbacks and seeing how Viltrum was before Thrag took over, and it really does show how much better of a leader Argal was. Yes, Thrag is strong and smart in his own regard, but Argal seemed to have a level of understanding that Thrag doesn't completely have yet. Like, the first thing Thrag does is instantly call for a war within his own people, killing like half of the population, and proves instantly he's always been set on becoming the strongest, even if that is at the expense of his own people. Like, I just see that as kind of insane. Like, maybe Argal would have did the same thing, I'm not sure. I also think it's kind of weird how once a Viltrumite dies, they're weak, but once Argal died, everyone's like, oh, Argal, no, we must follow his word forever. Maybe it's because he didn't get a fair fight and he was assassinated, I'm not sure, but I thought they respected strength, so when they die, they're like, oh, you're weak. I don't know. I digress. Let's move on from this. But back to Thrag, and I'm still convinced he did this as a major deterrent to anyone who would turn on the Viltrumite Empire or try to assassinate him next. And after this little history lesson with the flashbacks, we get caught back up with our crew after the Telescria fight, and this time they want to take the fight to Thrag, thinking he is vulnerable and fling back to Viltrum. So even if it's a horrible idea, they decided to go to head out there, but unlucky enough for them, it was an ambush. And all of our main characters, even the strongest ones, are getting beat down enough to the point where it's time to start worrying. And we really have to start worrying when Nolan goes after Thrag, because Thrag hits Nolan with the meanest, most disrespectful sidestep I've seen in any show ever. Like, you cannot be serious, Nolan, my boy. You are never gonna recover from this. And on top of that, bro gets hit so hard he gets sent down to Viltrum like an asteroid, and once he's down there, here comes Thrag, and Thrag gives his little "come back home, Nolan, I'll forgive you" speech, but Nolan is like, nah, I'm good. So Thrag winds back a punch so hard he literally becomes an airbender, and he punches Nolan straight back up into space like Nolan can't do anything. And I don't know how anyone plans on stopping this dude. Like, he even makes Nolan look like he's the weakest Viltrumite ever. But after even getting beat down, Nolan comes up with a genius plan to grab Mark and Thetis and fly directly towards planet Viltrum. And he tells Space Racer to shoot his gun, and then they all fly as like a triangle or like a little group, and they just move like a giant asteroid flying at like light speed or something that destroys the entire planet. Like, they fly clean through it from one side out the other, blowing it up. And I didn't expect this to work. I'm gonna be honest, like this was actually pretty insane. And I mean, this is a pretty big feat because now Viltrumites have nowhere to live. Oh, and really quick, I want to point out that shot of the planet, that's probably some of the best animation I've seen in the show yet. I took a screenshot mid-episode while I was watching it with my friends, and I don't think they're very happy about that, but I had to get the picture. I'm sorry. And oh, and remember Thrag? Yeah, we're not forgetting about him because he isn't happy about this planet getting destroyed at all. And while Thetis is giving his little speech about your planet is gone, surrender or join us, Thrag pops out and instantly says,
I choose death!
And yes, I mean, within a split second of him showing up, he instantly kills Thetis by ripping his head off. And this motherfucker is scary when he's mad, like genuinely scary. And then this dude Marks literally just starts shitting himself. Like imagine fighting someone who when you hit as hard as you can, nothing happens. And when you try to run away as fast as you can't outrun them. Like it doesn't matter if you choose fight or flight, you're cooked either way. And speaking of Nolan getting messed up, tells Nolan,
I was too quick with Thetis. I won't make the same mistake with you.
this dude literally puts his fist through Nolan's chest. Like he blows a hole straight through his chest. And we see the strongest character we've seen so far get taken out in one hit. And this was genuinely insane. Like I thought Nolan was dead. And I don't know if it's plot armor or what, but Thrag, after taking them both out, decides not to finish him off because, and I quote,
We are too few already.
and I mean, you can't blame him because even though they're his worst enemies, after all that, Thrag's goal is to repopulate the Viltrumite species, so he just leaves. And after Mark and Nolan recover, they find out the Viltrumites are just gone. Like all the remaining Viltrumites are just gone, and nobody knows where they went until Mark has an insane realization.
I mean, they've gone to Earth.
Imagine coming home after a year in space and walking into your living room and seeing the most powerful being in the universe literally rip the person you love most in half. And yes, that actually happened. But at first, we start off thinking everything is completely fine. The Viltrumites aren't on Earth, there's no invasion, and everything is completely normal. And when my boy Mark gets back, he goes straight home to see his mom. And I feel like we can all relate here. Like, if you went through something like Mark went through, we would all want to see our moms as well. And this is when we see Mark's first hallucination. And it is insanely brutal because right as he turns to Debbie, we see Thrag literally rip her head smooth off. And I was like, bro, what? Did they really just kill Debbie? But no, Mark was just having daydreams, but they weren't even close to dreams. They were more like day nightmares. And he goes this whole episode worrying about Thrag showing up on Earth. Like he sees not just his mom get killed, but like really any person that he's having a one-on-one with, like Cecil or Eve. He sees them getting killed. Until eventually we find out Thrag isn't coming to Earth at all. He's actually already here and he's been here the entire time. Which, well, you know what? It actually makes complete sense because Mark literally only checked Chicago and saw nothing was destroyed and just assumed they weren't here. But when Thrag reveals himself and Mark sees him, he isn't messing around and is very serious in this moment because he brings Mark some terms.
Let me explain your future to you.
And Mark, he doesn't really have a choice here because this conversation isn't a negotiation. It's a hostage situation with an entire planet on the line. And it's either let the Viltrumites stay and live among humans or Thrag destroys the entire planet. And Mark does not want to agree at all and actually says no to him at first until he realizes if he denies, Thrag will destroy Earth. And this would essentially end up killing the entire human race and the Viltrumites at the same time because with no humans, there's no one for the Viltrumites to breed with. And humans already don't stand a chance in stopping Thrag even with the coalition. Who knows if he would actually went through with it, but we're not going to take that chance. But while Mark was dealing with a literal monster, this dude Nolan runs into Debbie again.
I'm sorry, Debbie. I was just leaving.
Good.
but Debbie's already made her choice. And my boy Nolan is really fighting to try and get Debbie back, which she made very clear to Nolan that she's only going with him into space to see and care for Oliver. And she also tosses in some jabs to further prove that she still can't stand him. And her choice is cold, it's final, and it shows that even the most powerful man in the world can't punch his way out of a bad past or some mistakes. Well, I say that like it was just an argument or eating his wife's food, but he killed a few thousand people, so I stand with Debbie here, I'm not gonna lie. But that's not even the most personal hit Mark takes, because right when everything finally slows down, he goes to have a sit down with Eve, and she reveals she had an abortion while he was away.
I had an abortion. I found out just before you left.
And this must have been insane to hear from Mark. Like, for a second you can see he's trying to process everything she just said, and it's almost like he didn't understand what he just heard. But luckily she explains that it happened before he left and how she didn't want to carry the baby all alone, which I honestly get and I support her fully, but I kind of wanted to see a little Mark running around. I'm gonna be honest. Oh, and we cannot forget Eve, because she is fine. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, she's been through a lot and she's gained a bit of weight, and yeah, I've already seen some people complaining about how she looks or just shaming her, and I seen a Twitter post with like some crazy like fat picture of her. Like, it's just crazy to me because I'd be moving just like my boy Mark when I got home too, I'm not gonna lie. But Mark's personal life isn't the only thing that changed, because when he gets back to Earth, the Coalition starts planning something that makes Thrag look like a complete saint, because it turns out that Thetis left Alan a special little message in case he died in the fight, and this message will literally change everything.
I believe with every fiber of my being that the universe will never be safe until all Viltrumite life is ended.
And in this message, he tells Alan, take the Scourge virus and use it to kill any and all Viltrumites, regardless of friends or anything else. And to do it by any means necessary, you need to defeat this evil. But here's the problem. Humans and Viltrumites share almost the exact DNA, so this might not just kill Viltrumite, it might actually affect humans the same way, and this will be a huge issue for Mark and the others, leading to Mark and Alan being on the opposite ends and kind of putting Thrag and Mark on the same side. So now we're gonna get Mark trying to protect the Earth and Alan being told to destroy it to save the universe, which is just gonna be absolutely insane. So let me know down below, do you think they're going to end up on opposite sides of the next battle or war? And also, everyone keeps arguing about who the strongest character in Invincible actually is, and honestly I think most people are getting it completely wrong, because yeah, there are some obvious picks, but the real answer isn't as simple as who can punch the hardest. And before we just start throwing tons of names around, we have to define what the strongest actually means, because in Invincible it's just not about strength or speed, it's more about durability and really how far someone is willing to go before starting to hold back. Because let's be real here, there are 100% characters in this show that might actually be able to win against Thrag, but most of those characters would end up losing because they wouldn't give up their morals to win in a fight against him. And to be honest, that matters way more than people give it credit for. And really quick, let's just get this out of the way, because when most people think about power or strength in Invincible, the first thought they have is Mark or Omni-Man, but for the sake of this video we'll be going with Omni-Man, and for good reason, because we've literally seen him wipe out entire civilizations, destroy entire planets, and casually have feats that just should not have been as easy for him to do. And even like the first Guardians fight alone, because even right from the start we see how he by himself took out the entire team of the strongest and most powerful heroes on Earth. But there's one more thing, because Omni-Man still isn't the strongest, he's just the benchmark we're going to be going with for this video. And now that we have that benchmark, I want to talk about a character close in strength to Omni-Man, and that's Mark. Well, in season 4 he's close, and this is kind of where the conversation gets more interesting, because early on he was just a punching bag for everybody he fought, and he couldn't even beat himself out of a wet paper bag if he tried. But as the show goes on and we learn more, and he gets a power upgrade, so I feel like if anyone were to get close to defeating Thrag, even as the story continues into season 5, 6, 7.
Say that again?
it would 100% be Mark. And currently, the only thing holding him back from putting up a really good fight is his morals. His morals are holding him back from just going as far as he can, unless you're like Conquest and you kill someone he loves, because that like gives him a power upgrade and he'll just wipe you out. Which also brings me to say, if Mark were to stop holding back completely and he completely lost it, he probably is one of the only characters that would be as strong as Thrag or even close in the entire series. But right now, he doesn't even stand a chance, let's be real. And I said things get interesting, but this is where the conversation really gets a bit more nuanced, because with Thrag, if you know, you know. And this guy's about to show up with a whole lot of issues for our main characters, and he really is on a completely different level compared to everyone else. Like, he isn't just stronger than Nolan, he is really one of the only characters who never hesitates. Not to mention, he was literally born to be a warrior, not like Nolan, not like every other Viltrumite. Like, he literally was part of a selective breeding process of the already strongest of the strong to produce an even stronger kid. And right from birth, he was being trained in every form of combat known to man or Viltrumites, but like, his strength is incomparable to anything we've seen so far. And now the conversation isn't even good guy versus bad guy, it's more of a these characters will just get beat instantly. And even if Nolan and him were to fight, I have no doubt in saying I think Nolan would probably lose, because Thrag doesn't hesitate and he's just ruthless, and he is. And yes, I'm sure some of these fights would go differently in different situations, but again, this video isn't about just strength, it's about mindset, tactics, battle IQ. All these things come into who would win against who, and Nolan would hesitate if he sees Mark or Oliver in danger, leading to him get taken out by Thrag. And Mark is always holding back and hasn't fully let go of his morals yet, so that would cause him to probably lose as well, unless like Conquest, Eve gets killed again and you're not stopping Mark if that happens. But someone like Thrag, there's no hesitation, there's no second guessing, there's no morality holding him back. He was literally born to do what he does, and that's what separates Thrag from everybody else. He's just a menace. And I gotta bring up my boy really quick, because people are sleeping on Alan, and at first he's not that strong at all, to be honest. Like, he's on similar strength levels to early Mark when they first meet, but after getting nearly killed for the first time, his strength is like 100x, and where now he's more on Omni-Man level of strength. So you start thinking, wait, could he actually beat Thrag in the right scenario? But let's be real, he's not stopping Thrag. He's getting spanked just like Nolan, because Thrag wouldn't even have a second thought. I think it's a low difficulty battle. Like, Thrag is just gonna show up, spank him. Alan will probably come back stronger, which good for him, but he's not beating Thrag, at least in their first encounter or where their strength level is at right now. But on the other end of that, we have a character who, out of all of the other characters I've mentioned, actually could beat Thrag, and probably will if it comes down to it. And that person is Battle Beast. And don't sleep on my boy. Like, he's taking on Viltrumites one-on-one in space where he can't fly, mind you, and he's still left with the W. Like, he literally breathes and lives for battle, and he's already on a similar strength level to Thrag. So imagine if he could literally fly. If Battle Beast could fly, I think bro might actually defeat Thrag, and I don't think anybody else, like any other Viltrumite or any other character, would even stand a chance against Battle Beast if he could fly. But since he can't fly, I think Thrag takes that W, proving that he is the strongest. But Battle Beast is the first fight where Thrag wouldn't just win, he would actually have to work for that win. And this is where the debate gets so interesting, because depending on the situation, the answer could very much change. Like, one different variable, are they on a planet with high gravity, are they in space? All these different things create a different scenario that any other character might get an edge against Thrag, but I think he still wins in most situations. Like, it's really hard to argue against Thrag being the strongest in this universe. And Invincible did didn't just change Tech Jacket, they straight up replaced the entire character. So I want to talk about what changed from the comics and where I think they're going to be taking the character from here on out. And okay, so we all know Tech Jacket as Zoe, but if you're a comic reader, you know that Tech Jacket was actually a guy named Zach, who was honestly a pretty sick character until you realize he and Mark play almost the exact same role in the comics. Like, both are heavy hitters from Earth, and they both actually look very similar as well. So when Robert Kirkman said the main reason why the character was swapped from Zach to Zoe was because in the comics he was just too similar to Mark, and they didn't want like a copy and paste character. And I would not completely disagree with that, but why didn't they just like change his hair color or his overall look like they did Rex and many other characters? Like, I just feel like there were other design changes that could have been made, but I mean, they didn't even just change like the gender or design, they changed the entire character, because for the most of the show this far, we have only seen her just getting bullied by everyone, and she hasn't even really had any feats. She's kind of just always someone who's having to get saved by Alan or someone else. I'm not gonna lie, don't even get me started on Alan, we'll get into him in a different video. Oh, and me saying this does not mean I don't like Zoe as a character. I do think, yes, she was nerfed way down in the show, and she kind of feels more of a support role, especially during the Invincible War. She's not really doing much fighting, unlike Zach, who was just on complete demon timing and even killed 2 Mark variants on his own. But she's still a compelling character at the end of the day, and I'm very interested to see how she affects the story differently than Zach did in the comics, or maybe nothing changes. I just want to find out soon either way it goes, but only time will tell on that. And I really hope they didn't just make this change for the sake of her becoming a background character who is just around to either push a different character story along, or for her just to end up as a certain someone's love interest. But I will be honest, do I think the love interest plot would be an entirely bad idea? No, not entirely, because Oliver does get down to some interesting things in the comics, but they would have to do it the right way with some build up, not just, hey, let's gender swap this character so she could be a new love interest for Oliver. I wouldn't like that at all. And plus, Oliver already has his little love interest down the line. But yeah, I just hope the change wasn't done just for that, because that would be pretty shallow and would be a huge disservice. But do I think the character change works? I mean, yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't. Like, yes, she's 100% a fraud in the show, but only in the context of the comics, because if you just ignore the comics entirely and just look at it from the show itself, does Zoe hold up as a character? Yes, she actually does. And yes, maybe she's pretty immature and doesn't have some insane feats apart from killing the 1 Mark variant, but that doesn't mean she needs to be bashed into the ground and compared to a character who in the show never existed. She is Tech Jacket in the show. And also, Robert Kirkman, the creator, didn't see Tech Jacket to entirely fit the show in the right way, so I don't know why we would even argue with that. I think he knows what he's doing. But yes, I can 100% see how a lot of people were upset about the Tech Jacket change and would rather have Zach, but to those people I would just say, open your mind a little bit and let Robert Kirkman cook a little bit, because I'm sure it's gonna be fine. But with all this debate going on, it leaves me with one huge question that I think some other people have as well. Does Zoe still have the same origin story as Zach? Like, does she get the Tech Jacket the same way? Does she also go fight in the Kresh War like Zach did? These are a few things I kind of wanted answers to, and all of those things he did led to him getting stronger and be able to actually get the feats and be more experienced that he had in the comics. But Zoe doesn't have those things. She's also de-aged, she's younger. So did she experience the same things as Zach? We're not sure, but maybe she gets a spin-off or they do on episode 4. I'm not sure. I just would like some of those questions answered, because right now in the show, she's not really shown to be one of the strongest, and she just keeps getting saved and over by other characters, and hasn't really shown to stand a chance against any of the Viltrumites we've seen her fight so far. But yeah, other than the backstory thing and the fact that she's just like a 13-year-old, I think, that just went into space to fight aliens and no one had a concern about it, I think it is completely fine. And I want your opinions on this too. Do you think this character change was actually necessary, or did they take one of the most powerful characters in the comics from us? Let me know down below, and if you enjoyed this video, stick around, because we talk about stuff like this all the time. And as always, stay curious and keep the conversation going.